All right. Well, welcome back to Freight Nation, a trucking podcast from truckstop.com or truckstop, whichever you prefer to call us. Guys, welcome back to the show today. Appreciate you guys listening in and watching in, whether you watch or listen, depending on where you are in the United States. We appreciate you giving us your time to pay attention to another episode or listen to another episode of Freight Nation. Freight Nation is for those that may be new to the podcast. Freight Nation exists because I find it great to listen to other people's stories on how they got to freight. I had an unconventional path to freight. One of my best friends invited me to come work for a transportation media company, and that's how I got to the freight industry. But everybody has a unique path, and most people didn't start out with like this, oh, I have this great dream of being inside of freight transportation. But when they get into it, they love it and they rarely leave it. And if they leave it, a lot of them come back. So these stories are really a lot of fun to talk about. And then along the way, we talk about what does it mean to be a leader? What does it mean to be move your career forward? What are some tips and tricks to help you be more proficient in what you do with your career inside of freight transportation? So today's going to be a really fun episode because we're going to talk to a guy that's been a lot of fun for me to get to know. Because man, this wait till you hear this guy's history of all the stuff that he's done, and it'll give you a really good indication of how he creates success in his business. Joining me today on Freight Nation is Mr. Will Hopkins of BlackBox Logistics. Will, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. So Will is actually as with everything in freight, he's joining us. He's via satellite at another part of the United States. He's actually in Philadelphia at Home Delivery World. So the great thing about freight is it happens everywhere, all over the place, and you can find really a lot of success anywhere you want to. So Will, one of the really cool things. So you've had a kind of a fun pathway to freight, but before you talk about that, I really want to kick this thing off, and I want you to talk about like the pre jobs that you had before getting into the freight industry. And just so you know, Freight Nation, Will started out with a dispatch service, and now he's moved into a full logistics company. But he had some really, really fun jobs when he was a younger pup. Growing up inside of his career. So we'll talk a little bit about those and tell the Freight Nation watchers and listeners so they can enjoy it too.
Yeah. So it's funny that you refer to it as a fun path, right? Because a lot of those jobs weren't very much fun. So like you referenced, right? I didn't grow up with this dream of, hey, when I grow up, I want to be a freight broker, right? To be honest, I didn't know that it existed. I just thought I saw trucks and figured, hey, if you have stuff that you need to move, you just move it yourself, right? Yeah. So I had a kind of a strange journey into the freight world. But believe it or not, I wasn't the best behaved kid growing up. So I kind of bounced around. So I didn't take the traditional route to college from high school. I started off at 17 years old working on a horse farm in Baton Rouge, Louisiana for Baton Rouge. It was cool actually. Well, some of it was really cool, and then other parts of it uh, were were awful. I mean, imagine Baton Rouge, Louisiana heat, throwing hay bales. At 17 years old, there's other things that the kids would like to be doing, right? But at the same time, it was good. It helped me build a work ethic, right? And I mean, it was there were good parts of it.
Probably had a great tan and great guns.
Yeah, great tan and great guns, and I learned some stuff about horses. It's all some crazy stuff out there. It was an Arabian horse farm, so yeah, so they had some nice horses. That they would breed them. It was a large farm, also a fish farm. So just doing odd things out there, building fences, plowing fields, tossing hay bales.
Tell the Freight Nation, well, how did you end up there? You said you weren't a kid that always followed the rules, maybe, and so how'd you end up at a horse farm?
Yeah, so it's kind of the road less traveled, right? So my parents were in different states, and I was kind of bouncing around. I did very well in school. I just didn't like going to school, and I didn't really, I wasn't the best rule follower, right? And so nobody was really sure what to do with me. So they sent me out to Baton Rouge to some family friends. So like, hey, maybe a change of environment, some structure. Put them on a horse farm. It'll get them into gear. And again, it was yeah, it was some really good stuff out of it, and then some really stuff that that wasn't super fun, right? Again, nobody really wants to be 17 years old working on a horse farm doing online high school, right? It's not what I had envisioned early on. But man, a lot of that stuff has really served me as I've progressed through life. So at the time, yeah, at the time, I was throwing hay bales, just like, man, this is all, you know. And then from there, I actually moved to Destin, Florida, and I worked on the beach. I was renting beach chairs, that whole deal, Destin, Florida, Pompano Joe's. I actually graduated high school online in Destin while I was doing the beach chairs.
So that throwing the hay bales and getting a tan and working on the guns paid off because you're at the beach.
Yeah, man, it was just training me for the beach job, you know, I came in and got right after it, but that was a really cool experience, and so that's another, you know, when I look at it in a broad sense, you know, working on the beach and getting to meet and talk to people of all walks of life, that served me in sales, just connecting with people.
That's a hustle. You gotta hustle in that job, man. And I mean hustle like work hard all the time, constant, always moving. Not like hustle like a, like it's not like just you gotta stay after it.
Yeah, exactly, and, it was, man, it was great. I mean, so I went from the, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, super hot throwing hay bales to, you know, working on the beach at 18 doing online high school, and that was great. You know, I really enjoyed that. But at a certain point, it was like, you know, what am I gonna do with my life? Again, I'd always done really well in school, tested very well on everything. I just, man, I just didn't have a lot of purpose, right? I didn't know like what I wanted to do. I was always kind of looking, searching, bouncing around, doing this and that. So I moved back to Birmingham, where I was raised for the most part. And I was just looking for traction. Again, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I worked some odd jobs to delivering pizzas, just kind of trying to, you know, figure out, hey, what am I gonna do? And I actually became friends with this guy who owned an agency, a freight brokerage agency, and so I guess he had seen some potential in me. He just said, "Hey, come over to the office, you know, talk to me." And man, when I was going over there, I didn't know what it was. Again, I heard brokerage, and I thought this is some kind of, you know, finance gig. I didn't even know that it was a job interview. I was just going over there to talk to him. I was 18 years old, no formal education. I saw these computers, and by the end of it, I was, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, I'll try it out. Don't really have anything else going on. You know, I'm delivering pizzas at Domino's. You know, this is a step up. Yeah, so I went to go work there. 18 years old, first brokerage position job. That was a Roadrunner agency. So it was their brokerage arm, Ascent Global, which was, yeah, recently acquired by a private equity firm, but it was a good company. I was there for, man, not even a year. I picked up on it really quickly. Man, since they're growing up, I kind of always had an entrepreneurial spirit in the sense of,
When you said you were a little disobedient or maybe you didn't follow the trend, that usually means you're an entrepreneur.
yeah. So, but even so, I was, you know, like at 10 years old, I was buying and reselling socks online. It was big when the Nike Elite socks were big.
At 10 years old?
Like 10 to 14, I was just reselling stuff. It was the road less traveled, but I was always pretty confident in my abilities and to figure it out. It was just about, hey, what's really going to keep that fire going that where I don't get bored or, you know, it's satisfying. It's enough for me. But yeah, I was reselling socks. It was when Nike Elite socks were big. So, man, there was this company that did all kinds of crazy designs. I would just list the socks to eBay and different third party resale sites for double, triple the price. They'd buy them. I would just ship them direct from their website to the customer. I would buy them, dye them. You know, we used to do prayer breakfast on Wednesdays, so we'd all go to a church, pile up in a bus, go to the Publix. I'd take like $100, buy all the snacks, bring them to school, and, you know, sell them 4 or 5 times as much. So again, like I always had, I don't know, I understood that concept, right? And then through the working on the horse farm to the beach chairs and just kind of getting to know like a wide spectrum of people. When I came into the brokerage world, I picked up on it really quickly. It made sense to me. So, man, I'm doing my first load, my second day with minimal training. My business partner now actually trained me, and he had given me this huge binder, and he was really busy. He's like, "All right, read through this." I read through it. Do you have any questions? And I was like, "Yeah, a lot actually." And he was like, "Welcome to the show. Like, go fire up your computers." I was like, "Are you okay?" And I did, and I got a load. It was a 3-pick US 2-drop Canada reefer load, my first and only reefer load ever. It went awful. I got the truck at 8,000. I quoted the customer 8,100, and then everybody made fun of me. Why would you only quote $100 margins? Like, it's my second day. I don't know. Nobody told me. But yeah, I mean, that's how I got into the industry. So I really just kind of stumbled into it. But in hindsight, when I look over my journey in my life, it almost seems like everything kind of aligned me to this world where it all makes sense that I ended up here. It's just how I got here. It's a little one of those things.
Yeah, so the kind of the All Right Freight Nation. So here's the thing I want you to take away from what Will was talking about his career and everything. At every stage, no matter where he was, whether it was with horses, whether he's on the beach, whether he was just moving across another state, taking a job delivering pizzas, or whether it's moving freight. He's learned something to add to his abilities every single time. So, some people would say, "Oh my gosh, I'm throwing hay." I'm sure you were cleaning out a little bit of horse, what, as well. So there's always that part. It's like, "Oh my gosh, there's nothing I can learn from this," but that's not true. You can build the character of yourself and your ability to think and withstand and move forward on things at every single turn. And so that's really a cool thing. And so that's why I really wanted you to talk about all those unique sort of stops that you made along the way. And on top of this, Will knew himself. He knew that he had an entrepreneur mindset when he's 10-year-old selling socks to his friends and to others I guess maybe it was online. And then what you're doing with continuing to sort of just helping satisfy or a customer need or a want and all the time. And so now you get to where it happens lightning fast inside the brokerage industry, and you found out, wow, I actually really like this. This is a lot of fun. All right, so talk about that. You got into it. You were working for a division of Roadrunner. So what was your next step after being where you were there?
Yeah, so when I was there 3 to 4 months in, I actually moved in with these two guys who are also working there. They're my business partners today. So again, one of them was a broker, the other one did a bunch of admin back office stuff, and they had another roommate. He moved out, and it was time for me to go out do something. So I moved in with them, and then after 6 months to 9 months, we just go home every day after working in the office. We're like, why don't we, we start talking about it. Talking about it at first, it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, that would be cool. But then over time, it just kind of compounded, snowballed. And eventually, it's like, let's do this. Let's leave and start our own company. So we were under non-compete, non-solicits, and moreover than that, at least for me, man, the guy who hired me took a chance on me, right, where I didn't have a lot of direction or purpose. So I was very grateful for him, and still to this day I am. It's KTB Global now. They're great people, and they really altered and changed the direction of my life. So for me, when I was thinking about leaving, it wasn't a can I get around this contract, this or that. It's like, man, I owe it to them out of respect. Like, we're gonna do this the right way. So we went to them. We told them, hey, we're leaving. We want to do our own thing. We're very grateful for what you've taught us, and we didn't burn the bridge, so to speak. But when we're thinking about that, waiting out a year, it was, I mean, I don't want to go work another odd job. I found something I love, right, and I want to stay with it. So it's kind of like, what do I do for this year? And looked over the contracts, spoke to an attorney. I can found a third party dispatching company, stay in touch with the industry, gain some new skills, and uh, and make a living that way while we wait out these contracts. So we started a dispatching company, Compass Dispatching Services, and that was a great experience because I didn't have any. I wasn't ever able to see it from the driver's end, but through that we worked with a lot of owner operators, 1 to 4 truck fleets. We also were doing it through COVID, right? So we started dispatching before COVID. We experienced the lockdowns, the new authorities. So really and truly, that was probably the most I learned in in like a 8 9 month period in the industry is the dispatching company. So I was exposed to. We worked with factoring companies to get our drivers. That's how we set up our pipeline. Call factoring companies, hey, these new authorities, kick them to us. We will drive the revenue. We'll make sure that the paperwork's clean, all that good stuff. Just let them worry about driving. We'll do that. And they loved it. We would tell them that we'd kick them drivers. We didn't have any drivers to kick them, but they're getting a percentage of the revenue. So it makes sense for them to pair them up with somebody who's going to ensure that it's up there. So a lot of those guys that jump into it don't have experience with that. It's a lot more than maybe they initially expected, right? So it was a good setup, and there's a lot of different schools of thought on the third party dispatching companies. The way I see it, it's similar to the freight broker agent model. It's a shell dispatcher. Lots of companies have shell CFOs or shell accountants. We did a good job. We took care of them. We treated their authority as our authority in the sense that, we're not canceling loads, getting freight guards. But at the end of the day, the brokerage was the ultimate goal. So as the contracts got closer to an end, we scaled back that as well. I continued dispatching trucks. We're working out of my friend's house at this point, Birmingham, Alabama. The air conditioner's broken. It's scalding hot. The dispatching thing was kind of my baby. It was my idea. So when they started the brokerage, we'd hired one of my best friends growing up. His name's David. So it was David, my two partners, Logan and William. They're starting to work on the brokerage, but I'm still dispatching trucks to ensure that we have some money coming in. So I'm working on my old bedroom, just no AC, lights off, dispatching like 45 trucks. Peak COVID.
Did you have no AC just to match, like, the working environment on the horse farm and the beach? Is that what you're trying to emulate there?
No, we just didn't have any money. I wish, it'd be a lot cooler. We just worked in the heat to build character. But no, it was just one of those things, right? That we had to do. But so I was dispatching the trucks while they were starting the brokerage as they started to get loads customers, and it made sense. We started to scale back the drivers. But for a while there, I was just dispatching all the trucks alone. And again, it's peak COVID. It's not back in COVID where everything's good.
Is this the beginning of Black Box, or is this right before that?
Well, Compass, the dispatching company, was founded before, but that's as Black Box is starting. I'm still dispatching the trucks.
Okay, I knew that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, keep going. It's great stuff.
Yeah, and then over time, I kept around maybe 4 to 5 companies, but as time went on, it just made sense to continue to scale it back. I kept one owner operator up until about 6 to 9 months ago, and he was the last one. So at this point, we're not doing any dispatching. The company still technically exists, but there's no business run under it. We've been running with Black Box ever since. It's been, I don't know, 4 years and 2, 3 months. We're up to between 40 and 45 if you count offshore employees. We're out of space in our current office. We're 3x in our space from 5,500 square feet to 15.5 downtown Birmingham. Yeah, we're super excited. But with that sort of thing, you get into how just renovations, timelines. We're supposed to be in next month, but that's not going to happen. It's just off in there. It's kind of messy right now. We're ready to get in that space. So we're holding our breath until we're able to, but hopefully sooner rather than later, 2, 3 months.
All right, so talk about the transition. Just talk about this to the Freight Nation watchers and listeners. Just talk about the transition. What it was like going from, and I know you have an entrepreneurial mindset, which is super helpful because there's a sense in entrepreneurs that it doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get it done. I'm going to sacrifice. I'm going to make sure I put in the time, and I'm going to be successful. So, but talk about to and just kind of talk about to the watchers and listeners, Will, about what were some of the experiences that brought you through, or what happened to you when you're like, okay, I'm gonna start a business. All right. So, what were some of the things that were real challenging, and what were some of the things that you thought were going to be hard that maybe weren't that hard?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things about starting and running a business that I just wasn't, I was just ignorant to, right? Things like, HR, payroll, like rules, regular tax, like all this stuff that's just not the fun parts of running the business. That said,
Necessary, but not fun. Yeah,
yeah, not fun at all. But I'm very
not
grateful.
at all.
It's the worst actually. Nobody talks about it. They talk about starting a business, this, that, see, like what's actually happened, everything that goes on inside it. It can be a lot. That said, I'm very blessed and grateful to have two great partners, right? So between the three of us, we all excel at different areas within business, right? And one of them, his name's William Graves. He does pretty much all the administrative, like paperwork, all that stuff. Between the three of us, it's one very high functioning person, right? So I've got my areas, they've got their areas, but a lot of that stuff that, man, I just to be frank, I don't know if I would be able to do it without them, right? Like the stuff that he does, I have no interest in doing it, and I don't know if I hate it. I hate all the administrative stuff that he does, and man, thank God for him, and he's great at what he does. And then, man, but so for me, it wasn't really there was never really a backup plan or even the notion that it might not work. I don't know if that's confidence or just we're just I don't know. I always envisioned that it would work and that we would do whatever we needed to make it work. And I felt confident enough in our abilities and who were as people to make it work. And I felt like we had a good business plan and we had thought it through. And I didn't know that we would grow this quickly. I didn't really foresee that, but I did. I didn't have any doubts that I would still be doing what I'm doing today that I was doing 4 years ago, right? That Black Box would exist and that this is what I would do for now and most likely forever. I mean, sure, I have some outside ventures, but for the most part, this is what I love and like what I plan to do for forever. I want to be involved in transportation. It's a really cool industry.
Yeah, most entrepreneurs don't have a plan B, and that's what makes them successful because you are hyper focused on one direction. So why? So you've got two partners, and you have been very complimentary about how you guys work together. What's the biggest challenge of it's not just having one partner, a 50-50, but you're a third and a third and a third. What's it like? What would be your advice to the Freight Nation watchers and listeners on working in concert with two other people?
So the biggest thing is, man, for me, what's been really important is just remembering that, hey, these are my people, these are my guys. If there's an internal struggle, or man, it's just with business, with human nature, right? We're going to disagree on things, but how we go about those disagreements at the end of the day, these are my people, this is my team, this is who we're going to be with. We have to coexist. So it's shifting from if there's an issue, me versus you, but us against the problem. And while we might not see eye to eye, let's talk through it and come together. And at the end of the day, we can disagree behind closed doors, and we do, man. We've gone at it, not a bad way, just tensions will raise, and we're passionate, right? But at the end of that meeting, we will come out solidified. Whatever we decide to do, I'm not gonna, especially if it's internal policy and there's an employee who doesn't like it. Even if I was against it, right, behind closed doors, I'm not going to. It's similar with almost like kids to their parents, right? Like one parent wants to do something, the other one's like, yeah, like I don't know. Like we stand together, right? So it's a solidified front. Even if I disagree behind closed doors, I'll get behind, or they'll get behind. Whatever we come to as three, we'll be 100% with it. And also, three is a good number because you need two-thirds, right? One and one could be more problematic, uh, I think.
That's a good piece of advice. Well, there's no growth without friction.
Yeah, exactly. And also, we're all pretty like-minded. We think differently. We do. We're just different people, right? But at the end of the day, we all want the same things. And I think that it's also beneficial to have different uh, schools of thought as opposed to just this group think where everybody. Man, a big thing with brokers that I see actually is you see like these trees, right? Like you got a brokerage right here, people break out from there, they start a brokerage, they break out, and you all have one way of training and thinking. And over the last year to 2 years, I've been big on networking and talking with other people in the industry and getting insights. And we pulled a lot of stuff from other companies that you could classify as competition that's really helped us. Because again, we were kind of in that group thing. Because Birmingham, there's the original freight broker that started at least our kind of community. He started, people broke off, started, broke off, started. So everybody aligns with that way of doing things. And when you're so used to the norm, you don't really consider other viewpoints, right? So that's been big for us, is kind of I don't know, being open minded to change.
Yeah, cool. So you started right when the pandemic.
Yeah, which ironically was great.
Did it give you a little bit of pause, like, uh, not sure we should do this right now?
Well, I didn't have anything else to do, right? I didn't have any formal education or any, like, I mean, I had soft skills, but I didn't, we didn't have a lot of, or at least that's what I wanted to do. We were going to do it regardless. And ironically, as we experienced, as COVID went on, it turned out to be, a boom for transportation. We really rode that wave and expanded and grew quickly. Um, but really, it was the dispatching that was, I mean, the dispatching was tough because at the beginning of COVID, it was really hard on the carriers, right? And then as time went on, they pumped all the money into the economy. Things were really good. Rates were up. But at the beginning, we were dispatching a lot of the brand new authority owner operators with these inflated expectations, and I was having to deal with them daily. And just like, look, there's a pandemic. Nobody's really shipping anything. It's an awful time to be doing this. Like I'm doing the best I can, and watching them these hopes and dreams to get their own authority, and then just kind of watching people struggle. That was tough. But again, the brokerage, it was kind of, you're more flexible as a brokerage. It's not, as opposed to being asset based. You don't have the overhead, and you can adapt and shift to the market. So, I mean, there were some advantages to the brokerage as opposed to, owning trucks or even dispatching to an extent.
Right. So you've launched a business, you're growing it, and you talked about the standard back office stuff, which is not your favorite thing, but as we said, necessary to the business. And because you gotta have structure in order to grow anything, you gotta have structure. So you got through the first couple years, you rode the wave, the pandemic, and then you also are still in the downward wave toward back to normality. So how have you guys navigated this kind of post-pandemic market as it's come back down to what, some would say marginal today or just adjusted back to normals? How has Black Box fared during the return back to a normalcy?
Yeah, so we've continued growing throughout all this. So during the boom, it was man, it was when we were first starting, right? So we grew quickly, and I hate to say it, a little sloppy, right? We didn't have all the
Yeah, well,
SOPs
you could be
or
sloppy then, right? The rates
right.
rates allowed you to do it.
Exactly. You can be sloppy, and we didn't really have a ton of stuff documented, processes, business things, right? It was just we were just booking freight and hiring people and hiring people and running out space, hiring people. And once it's kind of slowed down, we took a step back and looked at it, and hey, we need to get systems and processes in place. And then we shifted from a purely cradle to grave office, which for anybody listening, it's just you eat what you kill, right? It's full service. You're doing the sales operations, everything up until billing. We split it into half cradle to grave, and the other half is a team system, with the team systems being geared towards volume accounts. So during the boom, margins were great. Volume wasn't as big of a concern because, I mean, the margins are 2 times then what they are today. But as that slowed down, we kind of looked at, okay, what's sustainable to grow a business off of. And at the beginning, it was a lot of small to medium sized relationship based customers, which we still are people centric at the end of the day. But we needed a little bit more sustainable foundation, right? And the foundation for us has been that team system. So what the team system looks like is, if you have a high performing cradle to grave, you shift them to an account manager role. At that point, the account manager gets a dispatcher who's building all of his orders, doing all the paperwork, carrier sales who's sourcing the trucks, and a track and trace representative who is tracking all the loads. In addition, we have inside sales, business development reps who are, kicking them customers essentially. So at that point, you're able to shift towards from cradle to grave to more of a volume based broker. And what we've experienced or come to find is that those volume accounts are just more consistent with the cradle to grave or even project based. It's kind of tough if you're one of those brokers. You come into the week and you're like, I don't know if I don't know if I'm going to be extremely busy or I'm just going to have nothing going on. But with the team system, you get more sustainable freight, and it's just easier to build off of. So we picked up load count, I mean, by significant amounts, and we've dropped. I mean, our margin percentage is about average. It's about 15 to 16%. It's about freight broker average. But again, 15 to 16% today versus what it looked like 2, 3 years ago is a little bit different. So we just picked up load count, but we've been able to adapt and kind of make changes to the market shifts, right? So it's been fine. We've been adding people. Again, we're out of room in our current office, and we didn't think that every time we move into an office, so we got plenty of room to grow, and then we run out of room early. So it's a good problem to have. So it's been fine for us.
That's a really good problem to have. All right, so big question. What was the hardest thing transitioning from a dispatch service to a full brokerage? Because I think that there's probably some dispatchers out there that go, well, I mean, I really like what I'm doing. This is pretty simple. It's straightforward. It's not as complex, or maybe it's got a little less headaches to it. I don't know. I mean, I've never been a dispatcher. I've never been a broker, but I'm just wondering what was the big hill to climb to go from dispatcher to broker? And second question, how does your relationship change with the carrier going from dispatcher to broker?
So when considering dispatcher broker, there's two main variables for each one that's going to determine the difficulty of the position, so to speak. So for a dispatcher, it's going to be the driver that you're dispatching. So I mentioned earlier that there was this one driver, flatbed driver out of Fort Worth, that I had kept dispatching.
All up until a few months ago.
Yeah, because man, he was so easy to work with. A lot of drive. So again, for the dispatcher, it's who you're dispatching for. If you have difficult drivers who, man, we experienced a lot where nothing's ever good enough. If the load pays $250, it should pay $270. If it pays $3, it should pay $310. I'm not hauling that. I'm not going here. I got these weird criteria for where I will go, where I won't go, how many days I'll be out. It just makes it tough, right? Especially COVID, where there's not as many options, and that can be extremely stressful. Is trying to cater to somebody where the goals are always changing, not the goals, but the what's acceptable, what's not, what are we doing, what are we trying to accomplish. Nothing's ever good enough. And then for the broker, I think it depends on your customers, who you're working with, right? Some customers are just easier to work with than others. Some are organized and they're easy in, easy out facilities, and there's others where, man, the POs are always wrong. I'm giving you the wrong address. The weight's off by 25,000 pounds, and it's just so either role you have your. Again, I think that who you're working with is going to affect that drastically. As far as the brokerage is a little bit different for where you are as a broker. So getting started out, it's very sales intensive unless you're past accounts, right? And then from there, just the landscape of the position is different because as a broker, or as a dispatcher, you're receiving the details from the broker. You're just looking at the driver's logs, making sure it makes sense, right? And then using judgment to book it. The broker, you're kind of you're having to go get it and then translate it and then vet. And then it's not over from there, right? You got to track the truck, keep everybody updated. So I think it depends on. I really like dispatching, honestly. Like I enjoy it as much as brokering, right? Just for us. And
Do you like it because of the sort of closer relationship you have with the carrier, or what is it that motivates you to like it, but, maybe, just enjoy it more?
I think that, man, I don't really know why this is the case, but I think that I like to be a little bit different. So my two partners hated it, and I think that I like it because to an extent they didn't like it. It was my little baby, right? And just the experience and the perspective I get from working with the drivers, it keeps me on my toes for the brokerage space. I'm able to see other brokers, how they're doing things, the market. I get a feel for stuff, and it just keeps me I feel like it gave me a leg up on the majority of brokers that don't have that experience. Um, and then, yeah, I don't know. It does feel good when you have a owner operator or a small trucking fleet and you're helping them out. It feels good to be on not that the broker isn't on the driver's side, but being on the driver's side feels good.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just wondering, like, from a broker standpoint, your customer is the shipper. Dispatch standpoint, I'm sorta guessing the carrier is your customer. Even though I realize it maybe that's not the same model, it's pseudo the same model, pseudo, but you're still paying one side, but feels like maybe they're more your customer because you're really trying to sell them on letting them help you, or letting you help them.
Yeah, well, the way I put it is the carrier's really our boss in that situation. Because again, we're operating as a shell dispatcher to that extent, right? So it's yeah, I mean they're essentially your boss, right? So again, back to the drivers, I'm sure that we both and everybody listening, you probably had good bosses and bad bosses. Um, and some of those bosses, so to speak, the drivers I was working with, I enjoyed I enjoyed working with them. I enjoyed helping them out, and so I got a lot out of it as a human being, right? Like it was fulfilling work for me. Is what I think I'm getting at.
So would you say you enjoy the relationship aspect of dispatching more than the relationship aspect in your broker side?
Yes, yeah, and it's something about you know what you're getting into with dispatching. It's easy to kind of schedule, and I can put it onto a screen and look where all my drivers are and know, hey, on Wednesday, this is what we're looking at. Thursday, Friday with the brokerage, just a little bit more, got to be on your toes. There's a lot of things that just come up, and not to say that doesn't happen when you're dispatching. It's just a little bit different. All of it's a little bit different.
Fantastic. So you started Black Box with your two partners, and you guys are moving forward. So, what was the next big decision once you guys started building your shipper customers and you started moving more freight? What was the next big decision that you guys had to make that helped you scale the business?
Yes, I think the first one is just at what point do we increase our overhead and invest into the business? Yeah, so when you're with the brokerage, for the most part, if you're hiring cradle to grave brokers, you're looking at. I mean, it varies, right? But for us, we're probably expecting a 6 to 9 months before we see a return, right? And
Oh,
that
wow.
doesn't.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that kind of makes sense. It's 90 to 120 days to get them up to speed, and then they got to start getting their own motion. I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also when you take into account just, I mean, if you prorate rent per head, their equipment, the subscription services, everything, so it adds up. And then like health insurance, I mean, all that kind of stuff just kind of goes into it. And on that same token, right, 6 to 9 months, then also cradle to grave is the most. don't want to say most, but a lot of them don't make it. It's not for everybody. So at the beginning, well, now what we can do is we hire somebody as cradle to grave, and it's just not for them, right? We can usually look at an individual like, okay, hey, they do ABC very well. We can put them in this position, and they can be an asset. It's very rare that we ever have somebody where we look at them, and if they're showing up on time, they care, like they're trying to do a good job, and we can't look at them and say, hey, we can use you here. Um, the first big decision is, okay, we need room. We can't scale this company out of your house, William. Like we need an office, right? So we got an office, and then we started hiring, and then as the business kind of picked up at that point, it's just how do we grow sustainably, right? Because again, it kind of picked up quick, so we're moving quick and all that good stuff, but we had to get kind of some structure. It was all our first time doing it, right? We've never
Really? Nobody else? This is all three of you.
Yeah, I mean, so the dispatching company was our first well, it's the first real company. We've all kind of, done some, like I had a lawn care company for a little while when I was 16 or so, but it was just me riding around with a trailer and a lawnmower. I've never, scaled a company and had employees and had people relying on you. It was all new to us, right? So we're figuring it out as we go. So every single day was almost, it's hard for me to recall, the big decisions early on. It just kind of felt like every day it was our roles and what we were doing. There's just such a wide spectrum. Like these days, it's kind of honed in. We've been able to delegate a lot of stuff. Back then, it's just, man, I don't know like what I'm getting into when I show up to work, or what I'm going to be asked to do or need to do or figure out. So it was really, but I loved that. I loved that so much. It was very exciting. It still is, but back then it was a little bit more exciting.
The good thing about creating predictability is it helps to create profitability. So that's not a bad thing, is knowing exactly, well, more or less what's gonna kinda happen each day. It's always a good thing for the pocketbook that way. Alright, so you guys are growing Black Box, and so I wanna talk about what's next. We got about 6 minutes left. So I wanna talk a little bit about what's next for Black Box. How do you continue to grow it? And then I wanna talk a little bit about your podcast. It's a great name. 2 dogs, 1 pod. So is that
Yeah,
right? Is
that's
that what
going by. Yeah, you
yeah,
got it right.
you have to tell a little bit about that, but talk a
Okay.
little bit about growing Black Box. You guys are obviously young company. You're hustling, you're bringing everything to it. You're collaborating with each other as friends and solving problems and solving conflict with each other. But there's always a challenge to grow, and there's always those sort of things. So, and we're in a marketplace that's kind of like normalized out. So how do you and your partners look at Black Box and say, this is how we're going to grow it?
Yeah. So again, we spent the last well, we're doing other things, right? For the last 18 months to 2 years, we really honed down on systems, processes, getting everything documented. So it's a little bit
When
more
you say
turnkey, right?
systems, do you mean you've brought technology into your platform?
Yeah, we leverage some technology, but what I was really referring to is just our systems, processes, roles within the company. So if I want to go hire 10, 15 people, I've got their training manual, what they're going to do, all this stuff. Before it was kind of, we're winging it, right? Take you in and kind of like learn as you go, which is now.
Putting in some systemization into the training of new people that come in.
Yeah, and then even past that, 1 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, what do we do in certain situations? Why do we do it? What are our values? Business, all that kind of stuff. We've got we're able to document everything, and from the documentation, it provides a lot of direction. If we're unsure, it's like, well, this is what we founded the company off of and what we value. So all that stuff's good, and then yes, we have. Man, we do leverage some technology. I'm extremely bullish on automation, not necessarily AI. A lot of times AI and automation are used interchangeably. They're
That's
not.
different. There's a difference there.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and you can have intelligent automation, which has characteristics of both, but we just use automation. We don't use automation to replace employees. We use automation to increase efficiencies and make their life easier, so we can get more out of them, right? So I love automation, actually, and actually I know you don't read the questions, but they asked me who you should interview next, and I put Chad Olson, the godfather of freight automation. He's man, he's one of my favorite people. He's super intelligent, and he'd be a good one. But so for us again, we're moving from yeah, look him up. We're moving from 5,500 square feet to 15.5 downtown Birmingham.
That's impressive. Now, look, you said you're in Birmingham, and I'm a Birmingham kid. I grew up in Center Point, so I know Birmingham pretty well. Where's the location going to be?
It is, you know where Kerrigan's is? Not the beer garden, but the public house.
I do.
It's across the street, the Intermart building.
So down is that on the north end of downtown?
I know it's ironic 'cause I own a freight brokerage, but I'm awful with directions. I don't know. It's downtown somewhere, but we're gonna get a
It's in the industrial part of downtown. I
yeah,
know kind of know where it is. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of been it's been being regentrified. So that's exciting, man, that you guys are bringing more and more really legitimate businesses and breathing life into a city, into that part of town that's really needed it. And so that's exciting. All right, so we got a few minutes left. So 2 dogs, 1 pod. All right, so first off, how'd you get to the name?
So really, you've probably seen some of it just around the whole dog mentality. That's a big thing that I don't know. I'm big on mindset, right? And on LinkedIn, sometimes I'll talk about being a dog or bringing the dog out of somebody. I put that a few things on LinkedIn, and then Matt had asked me to do this podcast with him, and I agreed. He made a post, hey, Will Hopkins and I are going to do a podcast. What do you guys think we should name it? And a guy named Brandon Paynes actually commented 2 dogs, 1 pod. And then we just, we ran with it. So yeah, we just interviewed people from different sides of the industry. Pretty much all the episodes are interviews, but not so much, interviews where we're asking questions. We just bring people on and just kind of talk to them about their experience and see where the conversation goes. And then on Fridays, we usually do a big group, usually some people on the asset side, and then some more polarizing like broker figures that they kind of create some excitement and good conversations, and good to hear a lot of different viewpoints and learn a lot. So it's been fun. It's early on, but I've enjoyed it thus far.
Yeah, it's always good to kind of continue the conversation about how to create success, and so it's pretty cool. So what's I remember when I talked to you about this, you said that you like to just keep it very open ended on your podcast.
We don't go in with we don't ask them any questions before. And honestly, I do the stream, so we do it live. We don't record it
Oh,
or
that's
edit
right.
it.
Yeah, I remember you
Yeah.
saying, "No, it's not recorded. It's just it's coming at
Yeah.
you raw."
So thankfully, we're linked up with My Trio Services. It's a staffing company out of the Philippines, and they do all of our back end stuff for free. So all we do is we line up the guest. We tell Trio who it is. They do all the graphics, all that good stuff. I create a stream link, add them, and then they invite join. We're in there for 30 seconds. It's like, hey, I'm going to add Matt and I to the screen. Then we'll introduce you. And then we just get right into it. It's live. It's kind of exciting because we don't have any. We don't have anything to refer to. I mean, we do look up the guests, and I get to know them, and there's things that I want to talk about. Right, I'm not going in blind, but but yeah, we keep it very organic, and it's also it's live, so like we don't really know where it's going, so it's exciting.
I got you. Well, that's super cool, man. Well, Will, this has been great hearing your story. It's really, really cool, Will, to see. And this is one thing I love about logistics is there's always new blood coming in. There's new people coming in. There's new ideas coming in. There's new energy coming in. And certainly with growing up in Jackson and then moving to Baton Rouge and learning along the way and continuing to improve and improve yourself and sharpen the saw and continue to do things. And then you then kind of, as you developed your really mature entrepreneurial mindset, you just, you weren't going to give up. And so Freight Nation, if you take anything away from Will's story, I think be my guess that it'd be like, okay, you can do it for one thing. Have confidence you can do it. Just go for it, get after it, and go do it, and don't give up on it. And don't think you have to have all the answers along the way because usually you can figure it out. I'm gonna guess that that's a little bit kind of like the Will Hopkins story right there.
Yeah, you sounds good to me. It said better than I could. So yeah, I love it.
Well, I just listened to your story, man, and so it was really fun. I really appreciate you being on Freight Nation today. It means a lot that you'd give us your time and be a part of it and tell your story. So thank you so much for being on Freight Nation.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's been an honor.
Well, Freight Nation, look for Black Box to continue to do stuff out there. And hey, man, take your shot. If you're out there in freight somewhere and you're working for somebody else, and you feel like I need to do this. And anybody that owns a business certainly loves great people working for them, but they also want what's best for their employees to go out there and create their future for themselves. And so, what a great story of what you've done, Will, and what you and your partners have done at Black Box. And thanks for sharing that, man. Well, Freight Nation, that's a wrap for today. Appreciate you watching and listening again, and we do appreciate you guys just giving us your time and your attention as far as what we do here at Freight Nation and bringing great stories to you. And as we always like to end, don't forget to work hard, to be kind, and to stay humble. All right, Freight Nation, we'll catch you on the next story. Take care and keep on trucking. On behalf of the Truck Stop team, thanks for listening to this episode of Freight Nation. To find out more about the show, head to truckstop.com/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Until then, keep on trucking and exploring the open roads with Freight Nation, a trucking podcast.